was on a plane trip in Peru. On the plane, I was in my own little private jet. Not because I was rich. My family was very poor. They'd saved up all my money to go there. Just for me. How lucky I am, I thought. But then my luck ran out. A man came into the carriage with a gun. "Give me all your money," he said. "I don't have any money," I said. The man just scowled at me. Then holding the gun with one hand and using the other to rummage through my pockets, shirt and shoes. Then, after he found I had nothing, he went off into the pirate's cabin. I heard a bang! Then he came out dressed in a parachute. He also had all the other parachutes with him. Why does he want them? Then a terrible thought struck me. He threw all the parachutes out, except for the one he was wearing. Then he jumped. I peeked over the edge. He activated his parachute. It sprung up. He shot into the air higher from the force of the parachute. Then he flowed down, and I didn't see him. And I never saw his face again. Anyway, I went over to the cabin and I looked in at the pilots. Yep, they were dead. 2 bullet holes were just below their necks and leaking blood. The man had shot them. I looked ahead. A huge, an enormous tower was ahead. Well, not actually a tower, but I mistaked it for a tower at first. Anyway, so he headed towards what was actually a mountain, and it came closer and closer and closer and closer and closer and closer and closer until finally I could stand it no longer. I tied a rope to my foot and tied the other end of the rope to a really strong seat. Then I jumped. Out of the plane. Down, down, down. I took a pair of rope cutters with me as well. I'll tell you why later. Anyway, as I went down, I managed to grab one of the parachutes. I got it on. I looked. The plane was going to crash in. I got the rope cutter out of my pocket and snapped the rope. Down, down, down. I activated the parachute. It zoomed up. I swooshed up in the air with the pressure. Then flowed down, down, down. And I flowed down, 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 down. I looked up. I saw the plane hit the mountain and explode. Bits of debris flew everywhere. Doors, windows, chairs, you name it, it was flying everywhere. Even the dead pilot's blown up body bits were flying everywhere. When I saw that rude bit of the body, I fainted with shock. You know that rude bit of the body, don't you? It's just below here. I almost died of shock. Luckily, I just went unconscious. When I opened my eyes, I'd landed. Just then I remembered something. I remembered something I had missed. I remember the robber putting down his gun. Then suddenly I saw his gun on the ground. The explosion must have made it fly out of the plane, I thought, and land next to me. I picked it up. I shook it. It was still loaded. Well, I think I'll use it, I thought. So I continued a long, dusty road. Long, dusty road. And suddenly I saw a man on a horse. Hooray! I thought. Help's arrived! Suddenly a gunshot went BAM! Suddenly he fired a gunshot at me. BAM! I managed to swish out of the way and dunk. The bullet blew through a tree. It was so strong, so it blasted out the other side into another tree and another, and it finally stopped when it hit a tree so thick with the vines it couldn't get through. The man kept firing gunshots, so I grabbed my gun and boom! I shot his horse. He was stumbled on the ground. Drat, said the man. Then boom! I shot him in the head. Ha! I thought, that'll teach that nasty little bug. Suddenly, I saw more people ahead. People were charging at me. I shook them all. There was a carriage. There was also a carriage. I entered the carriage. A man was looking at a map in there. I shot the man immediately. I picked up the map. It was a treasure map. Part 2. I walked off with 2 steps to the right. I thought 18 paces to the west, I said as I read the map aloud and following the steps. Then turn straight ahead when you see Jesus' cross, when you see God's cross. What was that supposed to mean? Suddenly I saw it. An abandoned church. The Spanish had convinced the Peruvians to Christianity, so they believed in it then. But then they abandoned it. But they still knew about all that junk. Soon the Spanish lost the war, and their churches became abandoned. So did many other buildings. And if I kept telling you a story of how they won again, it'll just go on forever like the story. Anyway, just below the cross, it said, go west. So that's what I did. Finally, after a million billion years of going west, I saw something. A pyramid. A Peruvian pyramid. I smiled. I'd found it. I went up the stone steps. I counted as I went along. 1, 2, 3, 289 million and 8, 209 million and 9, 289 million thousand and 289 74. I counted as I finally got to the last step. I looked down. Everything looked small. From the ground, I felt like a giant standing there. So I entered the ancient temple, and in there I found a stone Allah where they kill people for sacrifices. I looked at the stone Allah. And suddenly I got an idea. I pushed the stone out, pushed hard. Then suddenly it moved, revealing a hole in the ground. I jumped down the hole. Big mistake. Scream! A sharp scream followed as I plunged into the icy darkness of... As I plunged into the icy darkness. As I plunged into the creepy icy darkness of the world. I screamed my heart out as I went down, down, down the never-ending pit. Then suddenly, wham! I hit the ground. Ugh, blood was everywhere, and I was covered in bruises. But I got up. I was dripping. My clothes were dripping with blood, and there were bruises everywhere. In every place you could imagine, especially the naughty bit. I don't really like to mention these bits, just like I did on an aeroplane, but I just can't help it. Otherwise you wouldn't know which body bit I'm talking about. Anyway, I kept going and going and going. Until finally I came up to an ancient statue. I went behind the statue. It led into a secret room. I rushed into the room and it was filled with gold, silver and jewels, and I was rich. Rich, rich, rich. Soon later I was found and the fortune received, and they said, "Congratulations. You found a city of gold.